This is Talking Drupal, a weekly chat about web design and development by a group of guys with one thing in common. We love Drupal. Recorded live on Wednesday afternoons in a Google Hangout. Visit us at talkingdrupal.com. This is episode 66, October 1st, 2014. We're talking about multidisciplinary agencies. And I was glad that I got that out of my mouth. Welcome, everybody.
How you doing?
Hey there.
Doing good. So we got actually an intriguing show today. This has been on our calendar for maybe a month or so with Dave from Ooomph. We'll talk about him in a minute, but we're talking about agencies that do more than just coding in Drupal. So it's a really interesting discussion. And unfortunately, we don't have our usual panel here today for the second week in a row, or is it the third week now? I'm not even sure.
I think Jason was here last week, wasn't he?
Was he here last week?
He wasn't here the week before.
Yeah, we spoke about his book last week.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. Last week was all about Jason. So this week we have John Picozzi from Ooomph. John, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
On October 1st. Welcome to the fall.
It is the fall. Leaves are falling.
Yeah, it's the first time, like, I think the night before last, that I was sitting in my living room at night with the windows open. I could hear the leaves blowing down the street. And I was like, okay, fall is here.
Yeah, apparently if you're a leaf peeper, the season's going to be accelerated because of the lack of water that we've had. So
yeah, in the Northeast, that's true.
Get out there. If you like to watch your leaves change color, get out there now.
I was down on the Cape for the weekend for a wedding, and when I was driving home on Sunday afternoon, I noticed that most of the trees were already at the yellow stage, so things are moving very quickly.
It's true.
How are things looking up there in the, what is it, the mid Massachusetts? I guess it is Worcester with Nick?
Yeah, Worcester's pretty close to the center. Things are looking good. It's actually wet here right now. It's pouring outside. I don't know about in Rhode Island, but I think that this is a very today's topic is going to be interesting. I've looked at other technologies a couple of times, and I've always made the decision. Focusing on Drupal is the right one for my business. So I'm always curious to hear about why that might be different for a different agency. Whether it's different client base, different sizes. I think today will be a really good discussion.
I think it goes a little bit beyond that too. Is it just a technology question, or is it also a services question that goes into, do you just do development? Do you just do design? Do you just do strategy? So I think it's a bigger question than just technology, although that's generally our focus. So before we get into our the breaking news of the day, let's also welcome in Dave Mckinley from Ooomph, who happens to be John's boss. Is that the right relationship here?
Let's call it coworkers.
All right. Okay.
John, as I mentioned earlier, I'm privileged to work with John. He's a superstar at Oomph, and I really enjoy working with him. So we rely on him for his specific Drupal domain expertise, and he is well known for the quality, or perhaps we should say lack thereof, of the dad jokes that he puts into our hip chat rooms.
Yeah, well, so John is also a superstar here on Talking Drupal. He's a superstar in terms of just who he is as a general guy too. So.
Oh shucks, you guys, stop it. Keep going.
But it is interesting to have sort of this dynamic of I'm still going to call you John's boss. I'm sorry. Joining the show today. Let me tell you a little bit about Dave. From what I know about him, and I'll let him fill in the gap. But John is a little bit more than what you generally call a boss. He's actually the CTO of Ooomph and has been there since 2013. He has 20 years of experience in mobile and web development, which is going to be an interesting thing for us to talk about a little bit, because I'm a little bit fascinated about knowing Dave's background is how he came from really a lot of mobile-centric work to working at Ooomph today, which I'm not sure is like a mobile-centric company. So I'm really interested to hear a little bit about that dynamic. But he's worked at Motorola and has created, and other companies, and has done mobile development and digital content engagement solutions. I have no idea what that means. I'm interested to hear about that. He's also worked on creating home and commercial automation systems. And from the few discussions I've had with Dave, I know he is just a mobile guru and a home automation guru. So I'm really interested to learn a little bit more about that. I think you've won some awards in this space and also have some patents that have been filed in the U.S. for some of the technology that you worked on. So he's also called an accomplished musician, which I want to know what that is. I know that he has like a number of guitars in his home, but I couldn't find anything on iTunes with his name attached to it. So I wondered what accomplished means. He's also a father of two daughters like myself, and I'm going to loosely call him a crazy cat person just because he is an animal lover, and I think he has currently 9.5 or 8.5 cats in his house.
8.5, technically.
Maybe he can describe what half means to us. So, Dave, welcome. I hope I did you justice there.
Thanks. Yeah, fundamentally, I mean, how I got to where I am right now is my degree is in music. My college degree is in music. So I might be an accomplished musician, but you could also consider me a failed musician in terms of I'm not doing it professionally anymore. But I come from a family of engineers. My father's an optical engineer. I have 3 brothers that are all various forms of engineer, and so I grew up in a household where engineering of various sorts was dinner table conversation. So I've been around computer technology. I'm 43 years old. I've been around computer technology since I was about 6, and I've been doing programming of various sorts ever since then. And so when I got to college, I kind of looked around at the computer science programs that were available and realized that instead, I wanted to go the musician route. I chose that route, and then when I graduated from school, I realized exactly how little money musicians make. So what that turned into was I found myself working for one of the companies that came out. It was the second IPO, the next one after Netscape back in the early .com days. So it was a company called Applix that IPO'd immediately after Netscape. And so I rode that first .com rocket ride with them, and then went through a whole bunch more iterations in my career, including jumping in at Savant Systems, doing some home automation, commercial automation. What that translates to is where I came into there. I came in as a web guy and left as a mobile guy. So that was where my career went there. I was working on a web interface to their product, a very customized web interface, and then the first iPhone came along, and that was strictly a mobile interface, and it was the best mobile touch panel that was available at the time. So I immediately jumped in there, and then the iOS SDK came out, and we started just going like crazy, and the whole company turned around to be completely focused on user interface via iOS at that point, and then a little further on down the road, Android.
So I would imagine today working in, I think, is Ooomph generally a web company?
Ooomph is absolutely a web shop, yeah.
Okay, so I think your perspective in terms of coming from a mobile environment is probably extremely valuable to them, right? Are you always looking at solutions from a mobile side as well as a web side?
Well, that kind of bleeds into the overall topic for today, which is the place where I've always kind of differentiated myself in my career has been being able to talk about the solutions, the holistic overall solutions, rather than a specific technology focus. As an example, recently I was chatting with a customer, and they were talking about their business needs, not their technical solutions. In other words, that we do have customers that walk in the door and say, "I want Drupal right now," and then they go into the business problems that they're trying to solve with the technology. But more often than not, people come in the door and they want to talk business problems first, technical solutions second. And that's where having sort of the broad, holistic perspective on the whole ecosystem really helps a lot. Because in other words, if you're trying to serve a large customer base, a diverse customer base, a lot of people that have a lot of challenges in getting their product, getting their message out, whatever their mission happens to be, it's better to be able to look at it from the overall perspective, the bigger technology, the bigger picture, and help them solve their business problems first. So that's my take on it anyway. That's what I bring into the room most often. And above and beyond that, it's all about just kind of understanding how to get there. So I'm not a guy at this point in my career. I'm not a guy who memorizes APIs. I'm not a guy who spends a lot of time worrying about that stuff because I know how to do it. I know how to get there. I prefer being able to focus completely on understanding what the customer needs and then turning it around and turning it into technical action that actually makes sense for them, that they can engage with, that they can understand. Because quite often, if you come in a classic moment, pre-Drupal, pre-WordPress, pre all these frameworks out there, back in the Motorola days, I would have the situation show up where a marketing person runs into the office, hair on fire, and says, "We need a database." And my first question is always, "Why? What do you need? What are you trying to accomplish here?" So that's I can go on in that vein for a while, but that's a quick flavor of how I ended up where I am.
So let's talk about the crazy cat person thing a little bit, because that just jumps out at me. So you have 9 cats or 8.5 cats.
I do indeed. I call it 8.5 cats. I live way out in the country. I live in a gorgeous part of Massachusetts, a town called Dartmouth, and my wife and I, we were lucky enough to be able to purchase a fairly large property here with that abuts conservation land. So you walk out our back door and we've got 600 acres of land right there that's never going to be built on. And because we've always been animal people, somehow these things ended up showing up. We live in a place where people drop cats off. Cats show up here. I don't know how it happened entirely, but we have the half cat is one who's kind of what you might call a hospice case. She lives in our bathroom. She hangs out. She's not the cuddliest cat in the entire world, but she's there. She's a presence, and that's about it. So that's I call her kind of a half.
Taking care of her.
Yeah. That's kind of what we do. We also you missed out on Nimbus the Wonder Poodle. We have a standard poodle called Nimbus.
Oh, you do? Okay. You have a poodle. Okay.
Yeah. And I have I think it's 38 guitars now. I'm sitting in a room with them right now. So.
Okay, 38 guitars,
yeah.
A poodle, and 8.5 cats.
Yeah.
That's all we need to know.
Whoever else shows up.
So just before we get into the technical stuff, because I like music, let's just talk a little bit about your music.
Sure.
You went to school for music, you mentioned.
Yep.
I also saw, I think, in your resume that you had a degree in French. Is that correct? Okay, all right. So we got a little music, we got a little French, we got an IT guy, so you're well-rounded. What are you doing with your music today?
Today I jam with some people. Yeah, I jam with some people every now and then. There's two sides to it. There's the performing side, which for that I don't need a whole lot, and then there's the collector side where I have a gazillion guitars. I really enjoy. I've been as a sideline for quite a while. I bought and sold instruments on eBay and places like that, and so I've spent a lot of time. I know a lot about instruments. I've spent a lot of time in that space. I play a lot of different instruments. If you were to hand me a guitar right now, my hands automatically play blues. I'm a blues guy, and that's my primary thing. But above and beyond that, I play a lot of different instruments, including harmonica, among other things. And yeah, you won't find me on iTunes. I'm not out there. I haven't done that kind of thing.
How about local live appearances for?
Yeah, every now and then. I like I said, I was out last weekend playing with a bunch of guys, and that was a lot of fun. And right after college, I went up to Maine and I lived on board a schooner, and I was the shantyman on board. I sang sea shanties, and on a tourist boat doing 4 trips a day. And so I know a lot of these crazy traditional sea shanties, and John's heard me jump into a couple of those on our company retreat a few weeks ago. In order to kind of keep everyone moving at one point or another, I jumped into a couple of those, and I think may have surprised a couple of people that didn't know that I did that.
There's nothing more motivating than hearing Dave sing while carrying a Zodiac with 5 other people.
There you go. So, Dave, our breaking news today that, since you're our guest, we're going to get your input on it, is Drupal 8 beta was released today.
Yeah, that's insanely exciting. I've been following it in a bunch of different places, and my place where I get my breaking Drupal news typically is Reddit. I tend to spend a lot of time looking at the Drupal subreddit and seeing what's happening there, and obviously that's trending today. And Dries announcing it was pretty damn cool, and I'm psyched because every Drupal person I know, when asked to talk about Drupal 8, has had this kind of look on their face of, ooh, yeah, that's sometime, and it's kind of cool that it's actually happening.
What does it mean for a company like yours, Drupal 8? What impact does that have?
So Drupal 8, again, going back to the earlier point of business solution versus technology solution, a good majority of my customers aren't necessarily going to know versions. In other words, they're not going to really care a whole lot about that. Some do, though. Some really care about it, and some have heard enough to have some fear, uncertainty, and doubt about going with the Drupal 7 versus Drupal 8 solution. And they need that reassurance in order to understand that a Drupal 7 solution right now is a solid choice and will serve them well for years to come. However,
those are customers that are very technical oriented, right? They're very tuned with the Drupal environment.
Right.
Yeah. That's not the average customer you're delivering a product to, right? Or a solution to?
Totally depends. We have, the whole multidisciplinary thing. We have customers that are highly technical. We have customers that are not at all technical. And then even then, in the largest of our customers, there are people who are completely non-technical who just want their solution. And then there are also folks inside those same organizations that really understand the technology and want to talk deep guts. They want to talk JSON. They want to talk RPC. They want to talk coding. They want to talk custom versus modules versus how do you put it all together, and they know their CSS, they know their grunt, they know all that stuff. But in our circumstance, sometimes we have to work with them. We have to help them understand that we have a methodology to accomplish these things. In other words, we have techniques in place. We have, again, folks like John who can execute, and we need to help them understand. Yeah, we'll take on board your technical concerns from your tech staff, and we'll fully educate your tech staff and get those folks up to speed on exactly how we do things. But fundamentally, it's all about helping the customer get to their business goal, because they always come to us with a business goal. There's always a business goal. There's always something that has to be accomplished that in order to make money, ship product, get the word out, collect donations, whatever it happens to be, there's always something that has to be done that way.
Because if that doesn't exist, there's no reason for anyone to pay you any money.
Right, exactly, yeah, and that's the thing that I want to get to with everyone, is making sure that they understand that our primary goal is getting our heads around their business needs, and the technology. While in this context, in the context of a Drupal podcast, obviously Drupal is critically important, and it's the backbone of the solution. It's not the thing that the customer doesn't want to hear about that all day. Customers they want what they want, and they want it now.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nick and John, beta is out. Does this change your view? This was a day we've been talking about for 6 or 8 months on this show. How do you feel today that beta's there? Does this change what you're going to be doing and how you're going to be looking at Drupal 8?
Well, I mean, it's a step in the right direction. I'm extremely excited. I mean, it's one of the biggest things that comes with beta is assurances of an upgrade path. So it's almost worth. I mean, I've been playing with the alpha here and there, but when it's a beta, you feel like you can. Like for example, I might relaunch my development blog on Drupal 8, just to see what it's like. Because in the end, if something goes horribly wrong, it doesn't matter. It's just a personal blog.
So Nick, I got a question. Say there's an upgrade path. So I read through the email or the post on Drupal.org about the beta release. I didn't see anything assuring to me there that there was now, as part of the beta, there's an upgrade path. If you now install it, any future releases will be upgraded. Is that something that is in stone, or is it folklore, or what?
The general presumption is that betas have upgraded from beta to beta. Now I think there are a couple critical issues that may affect that, which is one of the reasons why it's a beta. It's not something that you would install on the client site. But if you were using the alpha, every single time an alpha came out, you had to reinstall and start over. There was no way to just upgrade. So while it's not going to be similar to a point upgrade where you can just install it and run use Drush to update it. It's stable enough that you can be fairly certain major interfaces aren't going to change. Now that being said, there's still I believe over 100 critical tasks and issues that need to be completed before release. So we're still a ways away, but I'm very excited.
Nick, it's only 97. What do you mean 100?
Okay. 97 issues or tasks or both?
It says that there are 97 critical issues as of today, and this post was yesterday. So it could be over 100 today.
Yeah, possibly.
John, what are your thoughts here? I know you've been hesitant to do a lot of stuff with Drupal 8 because you were afraid of just wasting time.
Yeah.
Does it get anything for you?
I think this is actually a big step. So I think a couple of things are going to come out of this. I agree with Nick. I don't think you're installing this on any client sites right now. But I think what you are doing is you're installing it locally. You're able to play with it a little bit more, and you're able to, for developers, to get used to the more object-oriented approach that Drupal 8 is taking. I also think we'll see a boom of module development. A lot of the modules that we see and use frequently, we'll start to see them coming out with Drupal 8 releases or better supported Drupal 8 releases. So, yeah, I'm really excited about this and the fact that it's going to be moving things forward and getting everybody up to speed with Drupal 8.
You guys want to take a guess at when 8.0 commercial, or is it called commercial release? What do they call this here? Like
full release.
Full release.
You gonna take a guess at that?
February 7th.
Okay, there you go. So Nick, you gonna go over or under that, John?
That's actually my wife's birthday, so we'll go with that. I'm gonna give her Drupal 8 for her birthday.
All right, Dave, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. This is. Are you gonna say it's after the 7th or before? What do you think?
So based on the pacing I've seen so far, I think that's a reasonable estimate. I would like to say January 1st, January 2nd, whatever, but I think February. That's so what I want to say is sometime in January, but I think February is probably more realistic.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna go plus that. So I'm gonna say February 8th.
I would say sometime in 2015.
Oh wow! There you go, John.
And by the way, John, when you give your wife Drupal for her birthday, why don't you video that? Let us watch it.
Exactly.
No, I'm gonna hold that one personally. That's gonna be a personal moment for me and her.
All right, so let's talk about let's get off of Drupal 8 for the day. It's an exciting time, but we'll deal with that later. So for this show, what, Dave, do you mean, and I'm interested to know what everyone thinks multidisciplinary agency means. Just that term, because if you do a Google search on it, which I did, it's just lots of agencies call themselves that, and companies call themselves that. And what does that actually mean?
We're a 25-person company with lots of people that do different things. It's that simple. You know, I'm a multidisciplinary guy. Like, I know music, I know French, I know economics, I know a bunch of different things, and I know software. So, I mean, I think it's you know, it's a bit of marketing speak that means that we have a better shot at understanding your, you know, critical business needs, understanding your technology needs, and synthesizing something that makes sense to everybody involved. So that's my take on it anyway. That it's a situation where you have customers that are coming in that want to hear more than just okay, we can make a database. Okay, we can make a site. They want to hear about you know, what unique perspective you bring from not just as a build, but also from a design perspective, because we do have a significant amount of design expertise, as well as deployment and ongoing support. So it's you know, the idea with presenting ourselves as a multidisciplinary agency is that we know lots of stuff. In other words, we you know, we're a big Drupal shop. We also do a lot with some other frameworks that are out there that you may have heard of, and above and beyond that, it's about understanding the business and understanding what the customers are up to, what they need, and getting to the point of really getting our heads inside their business so that we can come in and say not just, you know, this technical solution is right for you guys because we say so, but this technical solution is right for you guys because we've taken the time to understand exactly what it is that you need, and that kind of ties back to the whole community aspect of Drupal and what it means and all that, because community is a good thing to talk about with my end users. But it begins and ends with us. In other words, we, you know, at the organization, we are the interface to the community, so we're the face of the Drupal community to our customers for the most part. In other words, they really, they're not going to be out there on Drupal.org. They're not going to be out there interfacing with people in the community beyond us, and so we have to be their voice for you know, for the good in terms of helping them hoist in Drupal 7 versus Drupal 8 versus Drupal 6 versus Drupal X, and helping them understand all the stuff that they need to understand in order to actually get something done.
So Dave, what, in your mind, what is the corollary to the multidisciplinary agency? Is it a company that just does one thing, or just does a couple of things? What is that? What does that mean? And I'm trying to just, in terms of the big picture, is understand why one company is multi and one is not. Where is that? And to the people and to the listeners of the show, I think we have a large group of people who are probably 1, 2 in small shops, and not necessarily 25 people. That are doing design and marketing and PR, and what does that sort of mean for them? Is it a bad thing to be, you know, non-multi-disciplinary?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, yeah, go ahead, John.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, to that point, I have some interesting points of view, or at least I think they're interesting points of view on that.
We'll let you know, John.
I'm sure you will. That's why I keep coming back.
So, yeah, but you're a superstar, so.
I am a superstar. I've been anointed. So multidisciplinary. The way I look at that is that we have a lot of tools in our toolbox. We all know that there are companies out there that solely focus on Drupal. They're like, all we do is Drupal. We're like, you know, Drupal 24/7, which isn't a bad thing. That's actually a great thing. You know, a lot of those people have the ability to do things that, you know, we may not, as far as not from a building perspective, but as far as a community involvement perspective. So being that focused on one CMS is not a bad thing. whether it's WordPress or whether it's Drupal or whatever it might be. So, if you're that one-person shop or a couple of people and you're hyper-focused on just one CMS, that's great. I think that's a good plan for you. Where we see a lot of benefit to this is a lot of times we'll have people come in that are like, I have this WordPress site and I want to migrate it to Drupal because I need this crazy functionality or some sort of weird integration. And that's really where having the staff that understands Drupal and having the staff that understands WordPress and having the staff that understands third-party solutions really helps us to, as Dave was saying previously, find a solution for that client and that client's needs. And I think that's really where the rubber hits the road with multidisciplinary versus a shop that's just solely focusing on one CMS or one technology.
Nick, do you consider yourself multidisciplinary?
I consider myself multidisciplinary. I don't necessarily consider my company multidisciplinary. As far as myself, I know a fair amount of systems administration. I know a lot about Drupal. I've learned a bit about SEO throughout the years, but I definitely don't market myself as that, and I don't sell that service. I think the big thing is being able to have. For me, it was a decision that I've made a couple times and make about once a year to purposefully not be multidisciplinary. Being a freelancer, it's very difficult to either you become very, very good at one thing or you become decent at many different things.
So wait, I'm going to stop you right there. Because that's a concern I have with this word, and I think it's faulty, is to say that because you're multidisciplinary means that you're okay at a lot of stuff and you're not very good at anything. And I think that's a failure of the word.
I don't know that I agree with that.
So I don't agree with that, and I don't think Ooomph is that. From what I know of that company,
I agree.
They're not. But you just sort of treaded into that territory that said, hey, I'm sort of a generalist, right? I think it's a difference there in saying I'm a generalist and multidisciplinary. I'm there a little bit. But
so I think
those are two different things.
What I would say is that Nick is making a really, really wise decision for himself here, because as a solo person, as a person with maybe one or two employees, Nick, I don't remember where you stand that way. I know you and I talked about it at Design for Drupal. It's absolutely the right decision to choose to specialize like that. And again, regardless of whether you know a lot of things about a lot of things, there's still going to be the traditional Gaussian distribution curve. In other words, the bell-shaped curve, that goes like this. And you're going to have that slice in the middle that is what you're really good at. And that's going to be what you sell. And that kind of focus is critically important, and that's absolutely the right thing for you to do. And it's the right thing for a lot of the smaller shops to do. And the only way to broaden that curve, in other words, to make the tails of the curve shorter and to make the fall off steeper, is to spread out the expertise amongst lots of people. So in other words, we have 25 people, so we have a significant amount of expertise spread across that. So there's so if you picture it as kind of a tent, one person, you're kind of a pup tent like this. You're one guy in the middle standing up and holding it up. You add in a whole bunch more people, and they can start propping up the edges, and all of a sudden the canopy starts getting bigger. So you've got more space in that. And again, the multidisciplinary, you say it too many times, it starts sounding a little funny. But that's what happens when you get a larger group of people together. That's where you gain that power. Again, so my expertise is in software engineering and low-level stuff, databases, C, C++, Objective-C, all that kind of stuff, SQL queries. So all my expertise is kind of at a very low level, at a very close to the metal kind of level. So I'm good at talking about a lot of different things that way. I've done a lot of software engineering in a lot of different languages over the years, But the reality is that my particular tent, again, looks like that, you know, and in order to bump it up, I need John over here to prop me up on the Drupal side to make sure that he's giving me all the expertise he's got to be able to best produce the right kind of solution for my customers.
And I think that drives right at the core of it. I think at the core of it being a multidisciplinary agency is that you have people that are able to focus the primary portion of their job on that specific task. So in John's case, it's, you know, Drupal development, and I'm sure you have, you know, graphic artists on staff, and, you know, if in a pinch, if John's out sick, you know, one of the graphic designers might know enough about Drupal to, you know, tweak something. But if they were, or maybe, just as an example, but, you know, but if that was their primary job, you'd be in trouble with them splitting time. And it's the same thing. I think there are rare exceptions. There are a couple of people in the world that truly are multidisciplinary. I mean, they know almost everything there is to know about multiple technologies. And I'm not going to name names.
I think one of the things to bring to the table here and to note is that we're talking about multidisciplinary agencies, not multidisciplinary individuals.
Right.
Because I think that can be, you know, that can be a tricky ground to walk on, right?
Yeah.
A multidisciplinary individual it can be, you know, that old saying, a jack of all trades, master of none, and that can really be dangerous from, you know, a company perspective. If you're a company looking to get a website built and you go to a person like that, they could build you the greatest website ever, but it may also be you may also run into scenarios where you're you know, constantly running into problems that they may have to figure out how to solve. When you
and it's not a matter of like a company that isn't multidisciplinary not being able to solve the problem. It's more of how much energy do they have to expend in order to solve a problem that isn't related to their core competency.
Right. I mean, we have, you know, I have obviously I'm on the Drupal team, but the Drupal team has a bunch of guys and some girls on it that you know, all we do all day is build Drupal websites. Same thing with the WordPress side of the business. We have people that their whole world revolves around WordPress. And they do amazing things with WordPress, things I didn't even know were possible. And then we have, you know, just back-end coders that are working on just coding with third-party APIs and that sort of thing. So we have people that are very dedicated to, you know, the software or the languages that they're coding in, and I think that's extremely powerful and one of the more powerful points of being a multidisciplinary agency.
So
I'm intrigued by one company doing WordPress and Drupal, and let's spend a few minutes on that. Is as an agency, how do you guys decide? So a customer comes to you, and Dave, you pointed out you're really focused on the business needs. So you get some business needs coming in from a company. They don't have any technology biases. How do you decide where to put them in your company? Do they go down the WordPress side or do they go down the Drupal side? What are the decision factors there?
Totally depends on the nature of the project, you know, on the nature of the client and what they want. You know, if a client comes to us and says, you know, I'm a newspaper and I put out 1 million articles a day and we have this kind of editorial workflow, then at that point, you know, we might steer them in the other direction. Company comes to us and they have needs that are more complex, a different editorial workflow, and you know, larger integration requirements, then we'll probably steer them the Drupal way. And by the way, those customers, those are my favorites. Those are the ones that are a lot of fun because we get to kind of help them design the solution from the ground up. We do get people showing up who say, "Oh, hey, I see you guys are, you know, partners with WordPress VIP, partners with Acquia, you know, partners with all these other people. We see that you've already done good work on these projects in this technology discipline. Our CEO has had 5 companies or has worked at several organizations that have used Drupal or WordPress, and that's what we want. Those are a little easier to a certain extent, but there are also expectations set around those. In other words, where they walk in the door and they say, we want Drupal, we want this, 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 and this, and then we have to engage and say, sounds good, that looks like a great idea, but from our experience, doing it the way that you're talking about doing it will lead to problems further on down the road, so let's pull back a little bit and look at the overall picture. And it turns into the same story eventually, other than the client walks in the door with some expectations about the technology that they're going to be using. But the ones where we get to...
If I was to send out a tweet tomorrow that said, Dave from Ooomph says that if you are of these 3 characteristics, this you should go in the Drupal direction. If not, you should go in the WordPress direction. Are there like characteristics that would put you in one camp or the other?
All right, so that's a great opportunity.
Maybe I'm putting you on the spot. I don't know.
No, that's a great opportunity to be facetious, but I won't go in that direction. I would say, again, it's more about kind of the vertical markets. Like, are you a news organization? Are you what's your primary business goal that way? 3 characteristics. That's a nice, yeah. If we're talking Twitter friendly, I'm gonna have to hem and haw about that one a little bit. But I mean, I think it's do you want to set up Drupal Commerce? Do you want to set up a site that sells products that move stuff out the door?
So selling product would be one of those things for you.
That would certainly show up, yeah. I mean, and that's one of the distinctions that we've had along the way is that as soon as we hit e-commerce, we tend to start looking around a little bit more aggressively at Drupal. There's a couple of other characteristics that we'll hit. Again, it's
multi-language. Is that and I'm a little bit ignorant on the WordPress side.
WordPress has come a long ways in that department, and they do a perfectly fine job multi-language. We have certainly done some multilingual solutions on the Drupal side that have gone very, very well, that we've been happy about, and that would, again, it depends on the editorial experience. If you look at the editorial workflow in a Drupal site versus a WordPress site, it's a different vibe. And
so how would clarify that? What does that mean?
In other words, WP Admin, there's a lot of customizations that can happen in WP Admin on the WordPress side. There's the concept of custom post types versus custom content types, and all the other stuff, all those comparisons that exist between the two. And you can get a lot more fine-grained control in the Drupal world that a lot of my customers really appreciate. In other words, like you can, and again, using pick your top 5 modules. I mean, I've seen those kind of posts go by all over the place. Like there's always a what's your module toolkit when you go to launch a new site, that kind of thing. And typically, when you look at the module toolkit, you look at the views module, you look at some of the more advanced stuff, there's a lot of stuff that you can do right out of the box that if you do it, and John might cringe when I say this, but if you do it the Drupal way, you can get really far down the road. The typical open source sell is open source gets you 80% of the way there. And then you do the last 20%, yourself in one form or another. And so with going Drupal, going modules, you can get 90%, 95% of the way down the road and focus really on the stuff that brings value to the customer that people really like. But again, it just depends. If you're looking at a super large scale site that has a lot of characteristics of a blog, a radio station's a great example. There's a lot of radio stations out there that are running on WordPress and really, really happy about it because they have an editorial flow that fits that vertical market really, really well. But you step back and you look at something that's a little bit more fine-grained, like a TV presence that's international, for instance, or like I said, e-commerce integration, all that kind of stuff.
So, Dave, tapping a little bit into your vast experience in the mobile side. If you were working with a customer that was looking to build a web experience and a mobile experience, would you gear them to the WordPress side or the Drupal side, or does it not make a difference if they're also looking at some mobile strategies? And because this is a Drupal podcast, it doesn't matter what your answer is, by the way. If you say I would push them to WordPress, that's fine. We're looking for the honest opinion here.
You're going to get the honest opinion, and the honest opinion is you're not going to pin me down that easily,
right.
Because the thing is that when you have a certain amount of expertise in a framework, any framework, doesn't matter what it is, Microsoft SharePoint, whatever.
But you guys have both, though. I mean,
yeah.
That's what's unique about having you on this phone call today, is that you guys are the WordPress and the Drupal guys. So
right. So if you're going to power a mobile experience where the entire mobile experience, let's put it in iOS land, you want a UI table view where you scroll and you tap things and you get articles. At that point, it's very, very straightforward and simple. If you want a multi-level, let's say you had a Taekwondo studio, a network of Taekwondo studios, and you had all this crazy back-end data you wanted to store about specific content having to do with those. And by the way, that's not a real-world example. That's just off the top of my head. And at that point, you've got a more custom mobile experience that goes along with that. Mobile is expensive. Mobile is there's a lot that goes into it. And one of my favorite things that I picked up from I can't remember the guy's name. It was at MyTex, and I'll have to remember what it is later. But he talked about mobile moments a lot. And so creating the mobile moment, and the best example of that is in an airline circumstance, where you have a flight, and you need to take the combination of geolocation data off of your device, combined with a whole bunch of metadata on the back end as you're walking towards your gate to get the alert that your flight's going to be 10 minutes late, or to get the alert that you can buy a seat upgrade or something along those lines. Those things need a super powerful back end with a significant amount of access to logic. Headless Drupal is getting a lot of real...
That's my next question for you, actually.
Yeah, so that's where I see these things going in a pretty big way. I mean, because one of the things that I did a lot of at Savant was building out the back-end systems to go along with these mobile apps. So, like I said before, my expertise is in databases, low-level connectivity stuff, and so that was one of the things that was really powerful, is figuring out how to take a whole bunch of these devices and go as near to real time as you possibly could. I built all of that custom. That was all just custom ground up. It was actually a lot of OS 10 runtime software that we built in Objective-C and C and C++ and all that. But in the context of this world, being able to create a headless experience that feeds out to the reality is that one of the things that I've really wanted to do, one of my little pet projects that I've gone towards in fits and starts, is making this crazy combination of the frameworks that we use, just to show that I can do it, not because anybody wants it, but just as kind of a thing to play with, where I can take a Drupal backend and feed into a WordPress front end, vice versa, just create this insane Frankenstein monster. Again, I'm not going to sell it to anyone. It's not something that I'm going to put out there, but more as a proof of concept of this is 2014. We expect connectivity. We expect APIs. We expect a level of interconnectivity and interoperability from web to mobile to database to everything else like that makes it critical to be able to achieve that. If you're going to choose one framework, then you have to choose it correctly based upon what you want.
I think there's a lot of people in the same space that you're thinking.
Yeah.
The things you're talking about right now. In episode 58 of Talking Drupal, we had Eric Baldwin on, who was talking about many of those same things. Is creating the headless Drupal environment, but putting these frameworks on the front end, and basically Drupal was sitting in the back end to get data, and you could use anything in the front end. There's a lot of people exploring those opportunities. Is why does what is the connectivity between the WordPress and the Drupal? Because there could be some things that are sitting there. It's an interesting topic.
Yeah, I mean, and the whole concept of content syndication versus locking down to a single backend as you blow out to larger and larger and larger properties, all of a sudden syndication becomes really important to offload content from one place to another, and maybe you right size based upon, again, not just the use case for the customer, but the use case for the slice of the project So there again, I can spin on this for hours if you want, but there's a lot of different stuff that we can talk about there.
Well, since we only have 5 minutes left, hours is probably not appropriate today. But you know what? Maybe we could get together for a beer some night.
That would be fun.
Nick, you had a question you want to ask?
Yeah, so I have a question that I think goes back a little bit. As a when I had mentioned, a graphic designer doing some work on Drupal, you shook your head pretty emphatically no. Being one of the, I think, advantages of being a multidisciplinary company is having a broader client base. But how do you deal with the sales pipeline? Do you ever find that, the Drupal side of the shop is overworked and super busy, but the WordPress side of the shop is slowing down, or vice versa? And not that it's probably, WordPress has nothing to do and Drupal is going crazy, but how do you smooth out the flow so that the work is distributed evenly across the disciplines?
So the question is, do you guys make decisions on technology based on your current work status or your workflow?
It's rare, but that has had to happen a couple of times where I look at one part of the team and I have availability and I don't have availability on another part of the team. So that's we tend to try to avoid that, but it happens, and the customer gets a solution that they like, and everybody's happy. So I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, I mean that consulting is bumpy. That's the reality. Is that consulting is sometimes it falls off a cliff, and sometimes it's so crazy that you have no idea what to do, and those problems scale. In other words, when you get up to a 25-person company, there's those problems still exist, and we have the same challenges, just spread out over a lot more people, with a really, really, really big sucking sound when the next paycheck comes around. And that's trying to ensure that we manage the sales pipeline so that we can sort of seamlessly provide the right kind of workplace for everyone involved. That's a gigantic challenge, and some of the ways that we've gotten around that is we have the concept of maintenance, we have the concept of retainers, and we have the concept of these very large projects that go on for long periods of time. Again, when you scale, you can get, as the company gets bigger, you can take on larger projects, you can take on these long, giant build-outs that cost a lot of money, take a lot of time, and produce a very complex product. And so again, that's kind of what you aim for, is that when you develop a relationship with a customer that's making money, with a customer that's actually that sees the value in your services and is willing to pay for it over time, that's when the bumps start going away. And that's that's true for small shops and big shops. I come from my father is a one-man consultant shop. And has been for 60+ years. He's in his 80s. He's an optical engineer. He knew that he wasn't good at working with other people, so he made a decision to work on his own. And he's experienced the same thing. And it's, again, he developed relationships with these large organizations that recognized his expertise, and he became indispensable to them, to the point where he could turn stuff around so fast that there was no way that they could hire someone internally that could accomplish the same thing. And so to everyone that's listening that's in the smaller space, in other words, that's a 1 or 2 or 3 person shop, that's something to bear in mind, is that every job's about the next job, and when you pick up that plum client, sometimes, you've got to go the extra mile to get them to the next thing, because even if they don't hire you for the next job, they'll say fantastic things about you, and that's the critical thing. That's the place where in my own professional history, I'm really proud of the fact that I can go back and look through my entire career and find someone at every place that will say that I know my stuff and I know what to do and I know how to do it. That makes me really happy. So, but that's definitely in the smaller shop space. That's how I would that's how I would classify it.
Sounds good.
So as we start to wrap up here, we're getting close to our cutoff time here. I have 2 more things here. One, John, you have an opportunity here to put your boss on the line, to ask him a question that he's uncomfortable with, and I offer you that opportunity to go ahead and do it if you want to take advantage of it.
The funny thing is, and I have every opportunity, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to ask my boss any sort of uncomfortable questions that I want. So, fortunately for him, because he has that policy, I have none right now.
Okay, so I
So
know.
guys, if you each grab a leg, I'm pretty sure you can pull him out.
So the question John really wanted to ask is, could he wear a dress to work every day, and would you be offended by that? That was what he really wanted to ask.
So we don't really have time to explore that particular
Okay,
question right now, but I think John knows very, very well that whatever he chooses to do, I will be cool with. However, should he make the people around him uncomfortable, then we'll have a discussion. But above and beyond that, I think I've said it. John has seen enough of my personality to know that, it's pretty hard to pretty hard to throw me for a loop that way.
All right, great. I had one more question, but I'm going to hold it since it's 2 o'clock. So let's close this out. Dave, I want to thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
I could see that it would be easy for us to spend another at least 30 minutes talking to you. So I'm going to offer the invitation now that maybe in 3 months we get you back on the phone and talk about some other stuff.
Sounds good to me.
Hopefully you're willing to do that.
Of course.
We're going to skip the module of the week this week based on the time that we have, and that we didn't even select one. Does anyone, Dave, let's start with you. If people want to learn more about you, connect with you online, learn more about Ooomph, where should they go to find you?
Oomphinc.com, OOMPHINC.com is the company's website, and if you really want to see a picture of me, you can look on the leadership page. Above and beyond that, I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn and all the other places like that. I should be relatively easy to track down, and send me a message in any medium you want, and I'll get back to you.
So one thing I want to just thank you for, Dave, here is that Ooomph is the sponsor for the upcoming Nude, or New England Drupal Camp Conference on November 1st. So you could, if you're in the local area, you could visit Nude Camp on November 1st at Brown University. And I'm not sure if, Dave, you'll be there that day, but you'll certainly be able to meet John and other employees from Ooomph there that day. I think Chris, the founder, is going to be there that day. So.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
I'm planning on being there, and I might even wear pants.
Oh, really? Okay. I wasn't planning on wearing pants. It's only November.
It's at Nude Camp. I mean,
it's the best part of Work From Home Wednesday. Optional pants.
Exactly.
Yeah, John, don't stand up.
So, John, where can people learn more about you and find you if they want to harass?
If they want to harass me, they can find me on all the major social networks at John Picozzi, and always on at Ooomphinc.com.
And last but not least, Nick, we noticed that you're wearing a button-down shirt today, which I think is a first. So you clearly had some important meeting today. So where can people find you online?
Well, it's not the first, but it might be, and probably won't be the last. But you can find me online at Nixvan, NICXVAN, and 1 month from today at Nude Camp, NEWD Camp, Providence, Rhode Island, right, at Brown University. Looking forward to that as well.
Great. Thank you guys for your time. I'm Stephen Cross. Stephen, what is my Twitter? Stephen Cross with a PH at Twitter, or whatever the ad is. A little confused. And we'll see everyone next week. You can find me anywhere. You guys know where to find me. Hey, guys, talk to you next week.
See you next week.
Yeah,
Thanks,
bye.
guys.
Have a good one.